Hey everybody, how's it going? Mike from the Focus Garage here, and today we are looking at the booty. And what are we going to be doing with the booty? We're going to be tidying the booty up. If you buy any newer modern motorcycle, it's going to have some crazy long fender here. And that's just the law. It needs to cover part of the tire and everything like that. It needs to have a license plate light. Usually we've got some signals back here and everything like that. But what you can always see is most modern motorcycles will benefit from some sort of tail tidy. So today on our Aprilia Tuono V4, we are going to be removing this giant factory tail, trying to retrofit and save the OEM rear license plate, and we will be installing a Graves tail tidy kit here. So if you are interested, this is going to be your part number right there. It says it's for the RSV4 as well as the Tuono 09 to 20 and 2011 to 20. However, I have seen some people online using these on the 21s, so I'm not sure if I'm gonna have to modify it or if it'll be a direct fit. This is exactly what you get here. You literally just get this little metal bracket here. It's gonna tuck up under the tail, some bolts, some spacers, an installation card on where to go to do it, and then you get a sticker. So first things first is I'm gonna look up the installation instructions before pulling off this factory tail. I wanna make sure that this will work on my bike and get an idea of how to pull it off. But the first things I know I'm gonna have to do to pull it off is going to be to remove the rear seat here. So if you've got one of these bikes, you've got this little keyhole here. So you're gonna go ahead and put the key in, open it up, and you'll pull these little ears up one at a time. And then you've got the slide mechanism where the whole seat kind of just comes forward and off there. That will give you access to a plug and connect underneath here that I'll show you in a second. And then you can begin kind of removing the rear tail section itself. As far as I am aware, the rear tail section is pretty easy to remove. You can see you've got these two screws, one there and one there. And then you've actually got another one tucked up under this wiring harness right there. I don't know if I can show you that. But yeah, you've got 1, 2, 3. And that'll pretty much allow you to pull out this whole thing and snake the harness out through the seat and off of the bike there. So I'm gonna pull up Graves' instructions here. We'll check out what all is required and we'll check back in with the next step for you guys. So we've got the rear seat removed, and I've already forgotten that the 21 base model Tuono is a little bit different than the other ones here because you've got this whole little passenger accommodation grab rail thing here. What's different about this is you've got to kind of remove this little subsection here. So it looks real easy. You're gonna have 3 bolts. You've got one in the center here, one down in there, and one down in there. Looks like they're all 10 millimeters. So go ahead, grab yourself a 10 millimeter socket wrench and pull those 3 out. That should allow you to remove this whole little rear tail section. All right, gotta love it when a plan comes together. It really was that easy to remove that rear tail section. Like I said, you've got the 3 10 mils. So you've got the one there, one there, one there, and you can kind of remove that whole little subsection there. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna work on removing this piece here. Like I said, you've got a harness under here that you're gonna need to unclip. And once I get all this removed, I'll kind of show you what that looks like. I believe it's either this plug itself or this plug in here. Once I know for sure, I'll show you. But now you can kind of see, it's very neat to see the bike without that giant tail piece here. Very, very streamlined. All right, so what you've got to do is kind of remove this main little whole harness here, and watch out, you do have some live wires, so wrap that. But right down in there, you'll see that kind of whitemost connector, that front one there, that's what's gonna be that runs to your little tail harness there. So the whole factory fender is held on by that first kind of white clip there. That's your wiring harness for that. So you wanna lift this bad boy off the post up out of the way, move the wiring harness underneath it out of the way, and that is gonna be the harness you need to unplug in order to start removing this. All right, so I've removed some of the kind of back of the bike here. So we've got the whole, main seat gone. We've got the back seat gone. And then I've loosened up some of the fairing here, just kind of give you a better idea. So what you're gonna do, like I showed you, there's the 3 screws that hold on the factory fender. If you look through in here, I'm gonna pull this out of the way. Right in there, you've got a 10 millimeter nut. And on this side back there, we've got the hole where the 10 millimeter nut used to be. Those are gonna be used. You put the 10 millimeter on that side, and you're using that to remove the 2 T30s right here and right here that are on the factory tail. The one more screw right up in here is self-retained, so you don't need to worry about anything that holds on this one. But again, for this one and this one, you will need a 10 millimeter on the other side to make sure the nut doesn't, spin or fall out to get these out. So I'm gonna pull that out. Already pulled that one out. We'll pull the middle one out. get all this unclipped, removed from the motorcycle, and we'll show you kind of what we need to swap over from this onto the Graves tail tidy. Now that I've got the tail removed, I can give you a better look of what you're working with here. So again, 1 and 2, these two are retained by a 10mm nut on the other side. And then you've got this one way tucked up underneath there under the tail. That's also a T30, but it's threaded right into the subframe itself. No need to retain the nut on the other side. Here is the hole that the whole wiring harness passes through. And then to give you a better look of it off the motorcycle, here is what you've got. So it's just this one plug. This pinches in and pulls down to remove it. And here is your whole, basically, factory tail tidy piece with the wiring tucked underneath there, the lights and everything like that. So the license plate light and the blinkers are all kind of tied into this one main wiring harness there. So what you've got to do now is, if you're going to retain the blinkers, is remove all of this from the factory assembly and install it on the Graves piece. That is pretty boring. Everything just pretty much bolts together here. You can see you've got the bolts for the blinkers in there, one on each side. The license plate light has some 2 baby screws underneath it there if you want to save that, which I'm going to try to. And yeah, that's pretty much how all this goes together. So give me a moment. We'll go ahead and kind of rummage through this, pull it all apart, get the new Graves one ready to rip, and then I'll show you what you're working with. I would like to disregard everything I said about earlier about this being a direct fit on a 21 and newer Tuono V4. Upon some further research, we have a few issues here. The first being the bolts that this comes with, namely these right here, these 4 bolts, none of them work to secure this to the motorcycle. The problem is the factory holes that you have underneath here are not wide enough to accept the full-size bolts that they've got, but the other bolts they provide are not long enough to go through there. So what I ended up doing was a nice little Home Depot run, and I purchased myself the following. I've got M6 by 1.0 35mm screws. That's these guys right here. And then I went ahead and I also purchased 2 washers for that. The reason I went with the M6 is because this is the factory screw that I'm holding here in my hand. It is the same thread pitch as that. So what that means is that the factory nuts that secure these to the other side will thread right onto my new screws there. But what I went with is the longer length here to match the bolts that they provide, so that we can clear the spacer of this piece. Also, if you are retaining your factory turn signals, you will have to elongate these holes. You can see here I've made this hole bigger and this one a very crude drill out. And same thing on the other side here. We had to elongate this hole as well as make that hole bigger to retain the factory signals. So the factory signals will bolt onto here. This will bolt onto the bike, but you'll need to drill out these holes bigger and get new hardware. So now, the other thing also is that you are left with a little bit of a hole where the other screw mounts. So right now, I've just got kind of Gorilla Tape here because I don't want to get water up in my tail. It's black and it looks decent, but I'm going to look for some kind of closeout piece or maybe a different tail tidy altogether. I've snaked the wiring harness back through into the tail here, and I've got that plugged in on the other side on the bike. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and mount this up. I need to mount this first because once you put the bolts in to hold this to the motorcycle right through here, you'll block access to the signals if you have the signals on first. So we're going to mount this on, mount the signals on, get the plate and everything plugged in, and we'll show you what it looks like all tidied up. This is not the direct bolt-on affair that I expected it to be. You know, I had to elongate these holes and buy new hardware, but this still fits and it still looks pretty nice on the motorcycle. If you can kind of see here, give you an idea, that's what the bracket will actually look like once it's installed. So yeah, it'll be nice once it's on, but a little bit more of a hassle than I had originally anticipated. So we're gonna go ahead, we'll give it a shot, and I'll check back. Well, that's it. I've reinstalled everything, and exactly like I said, it was easy to finish up once I had those elongated holes and the longer bolts to go ahead and put that on. Holy cow, does this thing tuck up nicely. You literally can't even see it was there. The old fender came out to like here. This is tucked up flush underneath the bike. But I think that if you're behind me, you can still see the license plate pretty well. The blinkers are pretty streamlined with the bike now. You can see that they don't really poke out far. All the wiring tucks up through the hole underneath. I was able to reuse the factory license plate light. I glued it to a frame that I've got. But you can see here, the blinkers, there's a screw holding that on. Everything just kind of tucks up through the hole up underneath here, into the tail, plugs into the factory harness, and we're all good to go. It's exactly the way it would have come from the factory. As far as the wiring is concerned, it is exactly the way that it would have come from the factory. Everything is tucked, it's plugged into the factory harness, there's no splices or anything like that, and it's good to go. Really, really well streamlined from the side of the motorcycle there. Tucks away all that garbage that was behind it. Yes, I did love the look of the bike without the whole rear seat section and grab handle and all that. Well, but this is really, really nice for luggage and everything like that. I'm thrilled on this. I would definitely not say that this is a direct bolt-on if you've got a 2021 Tuono. Just know that you will need the longer bolts to hold it to the motorcycle there, and then you will need to do some drilling or cutting, dremeling to get the blinkers to fit. Everything's good now. I'm pretty stoked with how it turned out. For what I paid though, I would have rather just kind of rigged up my own eBay one. I did pay the full $95 that this piece costs, and then I had to make a trip to and from Home Depot for the screws, and then I had to drill into it. It works, but it's not the most pretty solution there. But yeah, that's gonna wrap it up for this one. If you're interested or have any kind of questions, go ahead and drop it in the comments down below. I'll be more than happy to help. I did see somebody said they installed this on their 21 without an issue. I don't know if they were sent different hardware. I don't know if theirs was a factory model or something was different, but this is how it worked for me on my 2021 Tuono V4 base model.